I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Moore,
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara,
Here.
Councilman Iacilli,
Here.
Councilman Pell.
Here.
They're all here.
All right, so we'll start the work session with a review of the draft agenda. There are a lot of public hearings that are going to be on Tuesday. The first is for to consider an enforcement action at 138 Maggie Drive, East Quogue. The second is a public hearing to consider enacting Town Code Article 32 as it relates to the amortization of non-conforming sand mines that meet certain criteria within the town of Southampton, and that's a continuation of a prior public hearing. The third is to consider a historic landmark designation of the property recognized as the Theophilus A. Brower Jr. Pine Walled Park located at 59 Montauk Highway in West Hampton. The fourth public hearing is to consider the use of community housing funds for the production of 79 affordable housing apartment units at the Preserve at South Country, Quogue, New York. The fifth is a public hearing to consider improvements to the Hampton Bays Water District pursuant to Town Law 202B. The sixth public hearing will be for a local law amending Chapter 264 entitled Public Assembly Licensing of in order to reflect current practices of the town, to clarify language and enhance enforcement ability by adding a suspension provision. The seventh public hearing will consider amending the residence district table of dimensional regulations to clarify distance from street setbacks for accessory buildings and structures. The eighth public hearing will be to consider amending the town code as it relates to height and pyramid calculations. The ninth public hearing will be to consider amending the town code 330-183.4 to correctly reference section on the screening of dumpsters. And the 10th and final public hearing will be to consider amending the town code Article 16, non-conforming uses, building and structures in connection with certificates of pre-existing non-conforming uses. All right, so let's go forward, proceed with the review of the resolutions.
I have the first one today.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 48523, authorize the purchase of asphalt and bituminous material used in Suffolk County contract.
Town Board Resolution ID 48675, authorized purchase of liquid blended phosphate from Massapequa Water District contract with Caris Corporation.
Town Board Resolution ID 48690 to authorize the purchase of safety shoes from Suffolk County contract with Safeguard Safety Shoe Company. Town Board Resolution ID number 48700 to authorize purchases and installation fencing with Residential Fences Corp. Using Suffolk County contract and Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract. Town Board Resolution ID 48704 to authorize purchases from Clark Equipment Company doing business as Bobcat Company using the Sourcewell contract.
Town Board Resolution 48705, authorized purchase of Kubota American used Sourcewell contract.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48701 to authorize purchases of electrical supplies from Turtle and Hughes, Inc. using Suffolk County contract. Town Board Resolution ID number 48715 to authorize purchases of fuel management, EV, and GPS solutions from EJ Ward, Inc. using a Sourcewell contract. Town Board Resolution ID number 48718 to authorize purchases of furniture, all types, except hospital room and patient handling from New York State contracts.
Town Board Resolution 48747, also co-sponsored Councilwoman McNamara. Authorized purchase of groundkeeping, repair, parts, and service accessory used with Suffolk County contract with Northeast Equipment, Montage Enterprise, and Oil Island Equipment Corp., and Mavis Equipment Company, and Finch Turf and Storm Tractor Company. Town Board Resolution 48521, authorized purchase of guardrails furnished and installed from United Fence and Guide Rail Corp. Using Suffolk County contract. Town Board Resolution 48698, also co-sponsored with Councilman Isola, authorized to purchase heavy truck parts and labor to repair heavy equipment from trucks using town of Brookhaven contract.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48717 to authorize purchases, maintenance, repair, and install for radios and miscellaneous equipment for emergency vehicles. I don't think it needs an apostrophe before the S. Yeah.
Town Board Resolution 48605, authorized purchase of motor vehicle oil and lube and fluid using town of Hennington contracts.
That's yours too.
I know, she did not color it in for me. Town Board Resolution 48778, authorized purchase of snow equipment, parts, accessory, and cutting edge using town of Hennington contracts.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48716 to authorize purchases of vehicle warning lights, light bars, sirens, consoles, and accessories. Discount off manufacturer's list price using Rockland County contracts.
Town Board Resolution 48774, authorizing the purchase of Western Products snow and ice equipment using Sourcewell contract.
Town Board Resolution ID 48744, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize supervisor to sign a contract extension for disposal and recycling services for unprocessed construction and demolition debris with Winter Brothers Recycling of Long Island, LLC.
Town Board Resolution 48751, authorized supervisor to sign contract with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Surveyor, to provide survey and engineer service for the realignment of Sabonic Road at the intersection of Tuckahoe Road and Barker's Island and Tuckahoe Lane.
Oh, that'll be huge.
That's a very bad
It is.
corner, a lot of accidents. Town Board Resolution 4875, authorized supervisor to sign contract with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, to provide survey and engineer service for the realignment of Stony Hill Road and this intersection of Noyak Road. Another bad spot.
Madam Clerk, if I can be a co-sponsor to that, that'd be great.
That'll be great.
What are these determined by the highway department?
Yeah.
Evaluated and decided we
Yeah, how
needed
to make it
these?
safer, basically, and how to improve the traffic and safety.
Town Board Resolution ID 48794, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize supervisor to sign a contract with PG Environmental Services, Inc. to provide professional services for well installation monitoring at North Sea, Hampton Bays, and West Hampton waste management facilities.
Oh, this must be a typo in here, on that, 4th whereas clause. It's got an extra 0.
Oh.
Get
Yes.
rid of that.
Okay, so it's 15,400.
15 million.
Is that correct? Yes.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, that's what it says in the financial.
Yeah. Town Board Resolution ID number 48748, co-sponsored by Councilmember Isilli, to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Suffolk County for the distribution of STOA funds for the operation of the Southport Commuter Connection bus service.
Wonderful.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48745, to authorize the supervisor to sign any and all documents with Source Pass Contemporary LLC to provide immediate assistance on a bank hours basis to resolve town's network connectivity issues. Town Board Resolution ID number 48730 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Serafi for legal education services.
Town Board Resolution ID 48782, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize the purchase of general construction services from the Land Tech Group, Inc., using the Town of Huntington General Construction Requirements Contract for Riverside Sewage Treatment Plant clearing. Town Board Resolution ID 48703, authorize the purchase of motor fuels from the Omnia Partners Cooperative Contract with Truman Arnold Companies.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48699 to authorize the purchase of tree removal, stump grinding, and trimming services using Town of Brookhaven contract with Looks Great Services, Inc.
Looks great.
Town Board Resolution 48520, also co-sponsored with Councilman McMahon, authorize the purchase of vehicle, equipment, and related products from NYS OGS contract with United Order Supply of Syracuse West, Inc., Outlet Order Supply, Inc., DBA Factory Motor Parts, and Parts authorized from LLC DBA Parts.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48702 to authorize the purchases of emergency road tire services and tires, passenger cars, light, medium, and heavy-duty trucks, off-road equipment using Suffolk County contracts with Barnwell House of Tires. Town Board Resolution ID number 48792 to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract, a 2025 Park District grant with Watermill Museum for the maintenance and upkeep of the Watermill Museum.
Sunday, if I may be added to that one.
Myself too.
You can add me as well, Sunday.
The whole board. Town Board Resolution 48783, authorize supervisor to execute a contract amend with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, DPC, to provide engineer and technician service associated with the town FEMA Advanced Assistance Fund for feasible study and material to support the grant application for FEMA Hazardous Migration Grant Program for Dune Road.
Sunday, if I can be added to that.
Certainly.
Another one? Let's skip it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I can. Town Board Resolution 48791, authorize supervisor to execute contract amendment with the Village of West Hampton and MRJ Industry and electrical portion of the Governor John Adams Dix Windmill and Restore Project, and also that's co-sponsored with the whole board,
This is no cost. The village is picking up the extra
of
cost.
course.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48637, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara. I move to amend, well, we don't have to make a motion to amend. I just say that this has to have an amendment on the fifth whereas clause, because that language that says, if doing so is in the best interest of the town. You see that? We've been taking it out, but that
We're taking out that
slipped
section.
in this time, and it should say upon town board approval.
Instead of what it says currently, you want it to say upon town board approval.
So to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Edward Wolfersdorf to assist with the review and backlog permit plans in the Department of Land Management with that amendment. Town Board Resolution ID number 48742 to authorize the supervisor to execute a public safety answering point agreement with the County of Suffolk.
Town Board Resolution ID 48746, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Fox Land Surveying for surveys for 15, 17, and 19 Lewis Road, East Quogue.
Town Board Resolution 48749, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, authorizing the supervisor to execute an agreement with Thomson Reuters for the use of the Clear Government Investigations Advanced Program by the town's Code Enforcement Department.
already purchased those properties. Sorry, going back to the,
Which one?
It's the
Lewis Road.
surveying to do the meets and bounds because we're doing enhanced rights on a portion of the property. So
we
they
didn't do that before we did the,
No, we had to vote first to acquire it, and now that we had the public hearing and we voted to acquire it, now we'll spend the money to do the meets and bounds so that it's recorded correctly as to what is formable and what's not, which they used to not do it this way, and they used to just do a portion, they used to do a percentage of the property, which we're now seeing as a problem on some of these properties because they're deciding which percentage of the property has to be farmed, so things have moved around and shifted on some of these properties towards neighbors' houses and things where they shouldn't be. So doing it this way now, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it specifies exactly what is already cleared that will be farmed, and it leaves the wooded portion preserved and not touched.
Yeah, especially when you have enhanced rights, so it's very much, it's really specific restrictions as to what can be done on the enhanced. So it's a good idea to have a survey that designates exactly what's the enhanced area that has that extra restriction on it. We need a survey anyway, so that's typical to have a survey done.
okay,
Any of our acquisitions.
thank you. Town Board Resolution ID number 48743 to authorize the supervisor to sign a 2025 agreement with Munistat Services, Inc.
Town Board Resolution 48684, authorize supervisor to sign sole source contract with Smith Metal Works of Newark, Inc.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48793, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell, to authorize the supervisor to sign any and all documents for shared services with the New York State Department of Transportation. Town Board Resolution ID number 48781, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, to recall and amend the resolution number 2024-1440, which awarded and authorized the supervisor to sign a contract with Ecotech Management, Inc. for electric waste removal, recycling, and disposal program. I think it was just, my notes say it was a vendor reorganized as an LLC. Town Board Resolution ID number 48724, to recall and amend Town Board Resolution number 2025-48, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Tonso Automotive, Inc. for the replacement parts for Chevrolet General Motors. That's just to correct a typo. Town Board Resolution ID number 48727, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell, which is the 2025 notice to bidders for removal and recycling and disposal of waste oil. Town Board Resolution ID number 48733, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell, the 2025 notice to bidders for scrap tire recycling services. Town Board Resolution ID number 48708, to amend the 2025 adopted budget for human resources. Town Board Resolution ID number 48663, to amend the 2025-2029 capital budget and add capital project Red Creek Park sidewalks. Town Board Resolution ID number 48709, to amend the 2025-2029 capital budget for the Flanders Community Center outdoor improvement projects. And Town Board Resolution ID number 48667, to authorize the closure of capital projects.
Town Board Resolution ID 48638, to appoint the 2025 Citizen Advisory Committee members.
I would just like to have the time to review this. There are some emails that have come through that people have requested to be on it.
Okay, because Paula sent an email to everybody asking if everybody was okay with this and if anybody wanted to be a sponsor, and nobody replied, so she just put it on.
That's fine. Yeah. If we can, I think
We can
we'll be
always make
good.
amendments.
Okay. Are we okay with that? Okay. Great. Town Board Resolution ID 48645.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if you appoint the Disability Advisory Task Force for 2025. There does need to be an amendment on this. Sunday, we're adding 2 people. I've communicated this with Jamie, and she's aware. And she said this correction would have to go through the work session process. So we're adding 2 names. We're going to be adding Joe Delgado. And we're also adding Josh Bellery,
Spelling.
Belury. Both have requested that they would like to serve on this committee.
Does Delgado have an O at the end or no?
Correct.
So you want me to add them for this agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48679, appoint Trades Advisory Committee for 2025. Town Board Resolution ID 48678, appoint Trails Advisory Board for 2025.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48739 to authorize additional funds for payment of legal fees of Farrell Fritz PC.
Town Board Resolution ID 48532, authorize enforcement action at 138 Maggie Drive, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map as indicated. This is a public hearing that afternoon. Town Board Resolution ID 48696, authorize the supervisor to sign 2025 community program grants.
Cindy, I'd like to be added to that.
You guys are
Myself
probably going to
too.
all want to
Yeah.
be added to all of
Could
these.
you add us to all of
You could add me as well.
them?
Town Board Resolution ID 48695, authorize the supervisor to sign 2025 Hamlet Services grants.
I could be added to that as well.
Yeah, all of us.
Myself too. The empty chair too.
Town Board Resolution ID 48693, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 Cultural Arts and Recreation grants.
Yes, I'll be added to that.
Myself too.
Full board.
Town Board Resolution ID 48694, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 Women's Services grants.
I'll be added to that.
Me too.
I just
Myself
want to
too.
thank Jamie Bowden for all the work she does every year on these grants and going through all of the information that's submitted and, you know, past uses, and she really does a great job. And, you know, unfortunately, Jamie lost her father this past weekend.
She
So
did.
services are this evening.
I'm very sorry for her loss.
Sad.
Town Board Resolution ID 48741. Public interest order in the matter of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Hampton Bays Water District pursuant to Town Law 202-B. And then we've got a lot of bond resolutions. Those will all be pursuant to a roll call vote. First is Town Board Resolution ID number 48771, a bond authorization of $840,000 for various equipment for the police department. Town Board Resolution ID number 48773, a bond authorization of $100,000 for improvements of the Hampton Bays Water District design for distribution system. Town Board Resolution ID number 48777, a bond authorization of $500,000 for improvement of Hampton Bays Water District. Town Board Resolution ID number 48772, bond authorization of $100,000 for the design of the new rifle range facility.
Which is up. You have more detail on that
It's just to start with a design
for the
police department.
police department.
Yeah.
Like to have a conversation about that one.
Yeah.
Because I think they just need a prefab building. I don't think we need to put $100,000 into a design. We could talk to Tom, because
yeah,
Tom
let's talk
did
to
all
Tom.
the looking at it.
Yeah. I remember him saying something about it.
Yeah.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48775, bond authorization of $250,000 for design and studies of revitalization of certain areas of the town. Town Board Resolution ID number 48776, a bond authorization of $400,000 for the rehabilitation of various boat ramps.
I think it's bonding for the trustees on that one.
What?
I think that's the bond is the trustees who will pay for that back.
That's what I was just wondering. I'll
Yeah.
make a note to make sure about that. Town Board Resolution ID number 48719, bond authorization of $1 million for the reconstruction of town-owned golf course and parking lot.
talks about.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48764, bond authorization of $175,000 for the reconstruction of the Bridgehampton Community Center. Town Board Resolution ID 48755, bond authorization of $200,000 for the purchase of garbage truck for Parks and Recreation Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 48763, a bond authorization of $400,000 for acquisition of road maintenance vehicles and related equipment. Town Board Resolution ID number 48738, a bond resolution of $500,000 for construction or reconstruction of various town sidewalks. Town Board Resolution ID number 48769, bond authorization of $500,000 for improvements to the Hampton Bays Municipal Parking Lot. Town Board Resolution ID number 48767, bond authorization of $600,000 for construction of a storage barn for use by the Highway Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 48768, bond authorization of $630,000 for the purchase of equipment for waste management purposes. Town Board Resolution ID number 48753, bond authorization of $700,000 for upgrades to townwide radio communication system. Town Board Resolution ID number 48737, bond authorization of $740,000 for sidewalks and traffic improvements along Noyak Road. I just make sure that reflects the reduction. I think it does, but
The reduction?
we took some, yeah.
Does this pertain to, this doesn't pertain to the project Tommy John started?
I think it does, yeah.
It's 1.2 million, but this is all that's needed.
Yeah,
This
that's
year.
right.
Okay,
And we got the big grant.
right,
We
okay.
have to keep pushing forward with that project.
Yeah, I just met with Nick about it.
Oh, good. Town Board Resolution ID number 48720, bond authorization of $1,065,000 for improvements to the Spionk Shore Dock Facility. Town Board Resolution ID number 48740, bond authorization of $1,100,000 for reconstruction and replacement of existing bulkheads. Town Board Resolution ID number 48765, bond authorization of $1,660,000 for the improvements to various town parks, playgrounds, and recreational areas. And Town Board Resolution ID number 48762, bond authorization of $2,400,000 for reconstruction of town roads. Town Board Resolution ID number 48759, bond authorization of $3 million for the construction of a new town activity center at 393 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. Town Board Resolution ID number 48365, historic landmark designation of the site recognized as the Theophilus A. Brower Jr. Pine Walled Park located at 59 Montauk Highway, West Hampton.
Town Board Resolution ID 48685, waive showmobile fees for Hampton Bays Hibernians. That's for the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Honey, could you add me to that, please?
Myself too.
Town Board Resolution ID 48641, release of maintenance bond in connection with Shinnecock Hills Golf Club Pro Shop.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48752 to accept the resignation of Thomas Feinborg, Public Safety Dispatcher in the Police Department.
Sad to see him go. He was just appointed at the Southampton Village Police Department
Oh.
as a dispatcher.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48722 to appoint Christy Bonilio to Public Safety Dispatcher 1 in the Police Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 48721 to appoint Kelly Clancy to Public Safety Dispatcher 1 in the Police Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 48756 to appoint Kelly Dwyer Calb to Senior Citizen Center Manager and Senior Services. Town Board Resolution ID number 48736 to appoint William Rayner to Heavy Equipment Operator in Waste Management. Town Board Resolution ID number 48683 to, resolution to appoint a delegate to the New York State Association of Towns 2025 Annual Meeting and Training School. Thank you for offering to do that.
You're welcome. Town Board Resolution ID 48681, authorize Fire Marshals Christian Hansen and Ryan White to attend the International Association of Arson Investigators International Training Conference in Atlantic City, New Jersey, April 8th to April 9th, 2025.
Town Board Resolution 48697, authorizing the Youth Bureau staff to attend Association of New York State Youth Bureaus 2025 Annual Youth Leadership Forum.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48566, co-sponsored by the entire board, to schedule a public hearing, Chapter 261, to consider enforcement action at 40 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, New York.
Town Board Resolution ID 48710, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, amending parking time limited in designated locations, regulations on a portion of Corwith Avenue, Bridgehampton. This came before the board a few months ago, if you might recall. And we were hesitant. I was hesitant to move that forward because of some just concerns that were brought about it by the Bridgehampton Civic. But there's been further discussion on this, and Councilman Pell has also been working on this, received some concerns from some constituents, and there's been further discussion with the Civic on this, and we'd like to reintroduce this and get this to go forward.
You could name me as a co-sponsor. Please.
And if you would like to see some correspondence, here are some correspondence between myself, the town engineer, who made this recommendation. It's it's pretty straightforward.
We did make a change on Corwith, though, didn't we?
No,
Small change,
we withdrew it.
the whole thing.
The parking, it was a parking restriction, but there is a small little change. It's not as extensive. The previous resolution, there were fears that it would trigger a need to build a parking lot to account for the restriction, but this is a little more targeted and detailed. So we could have the engineer come and speak during the public hearing to explain a little bit further, but again, I have some communications for all of you to see. Okay. And then Town Board Resolution 48760. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, amending and adding parking prohibited in designated locations on a portion of Lake Avenue in Northampton. This also came at the recommendation of our town engineer, as well as Suffolk County DPW. I have a letter here from the acting chief engineer of DPW, Alex Prego, requesting that the town enact this. So I have that correspondence for everybody if you would like to see as well.
I feel like we should be consistent about, work sessions when it comes to this kind of thing, because you put one forward last week and we decided to have a work session right on Inlet Road. I mean, should we have like one session a month where highway or engineering comes and tells us all the ideas that they had for changes so they can talk us through them?
Might be a good idea.
We're already doing work. When's that work session, Bill? Is it next Thursday?
Next Thursday.
So couldn't we just ask them to discuss this briefly at it? Oh, it's next Thursday after we're just scheduling the public hearing.
Yeah. How
And
about that? We could add them both to the.
Yeah, if you want to. I'm fine with it.
That way we know and the public knows what we're going to do. So when
The
they come to
parking
the public
ones.
hearing, they can be prepared.
So if they're already coming, we can just have them talk about these
Yeah.
two.
It's only going to be a few minutes.
And you've got the one.
I'm sorry,
It's
which document is it?
page 118 and page 121. Corwith Avenue and Lake Avenue.
Okay.
What do you want to do with these?
You
Forward
can-
them around, or
Yeah, you can hold-
Janice can forward
Yep.
them before the work.
I think I was on some of those.
yeah. Okay.
You're leaving it on the agenda though,
Yeah. Oh,
Please.
actually,
Yeah.
I'm
you're
speaking on your
speaking for
behalf.
But that's okay. Yeah, I'd like to keep them on because they did
I just
come
couldn't
from
hear you.
one of the requests did come from the community and has the support of the civic. The other one came from DPW, and I'd like to respond to that since the acting engineer does have his name on the request.
Okay.
Town Board Resolution 48779. This is a notice of public hearing for a local law amending Section 123-21 of the Southampton Town Code entitled Penalties for Offenses in order to increase minimum penalties for violating stop work orders. This pertains to the previous work session that we had that discussed our raising of the minimum violations of stop work orders. And the following one also pertains to the similar issue, Town Board Resolution 48780. This is, again, notice of public hearing for a local law amending Section 229-9 of the Southampton Town Code entitled Penalties for Offenses, Additional Remedies in order to set minimum fines for conviction of violating a stop order, because as it was expressed during the work session, we want to capture not only stop work orders, which has to do with primarily construction, but also clearing, excessive clearing. So this
Which are called stop orders.
stop orders,
Yeah.
correct. So we want to make sure we capture both in that list. And I just want to thank Ryan Murphy. I want to thank also Sean Cambridge for his diligent work and working with Janice as well, and everybody to make sure we.
You have to say the number.
I did.
You did?
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
48780. If I didn't.
Town Board Resolution ID 48731, road review application for 4 Birch Street LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map as indicated, situate at East Quogue is accepted. Town Board Resolution ID 48726, road review application for 20 Luther Drive LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map as indicated, situate at Watermill is accepted. Tom is really plugging away at those.
Yeah. And then we have 2 add-ons. Town Board Resolution ID number 48796 to terminate an employee in the Public Safety Department, and Town Board Resolution ID number 48795 to appoint Razvan Palagita to guard position in Public Safety.
Just want to go back to one thing.
All right.
On number 4, the public hearing consider of use of community house funds for the product of
Preserve,
79
yes.
affordable housing apartment units in the Preservation South.
Quiet.
Jim, could you explain what that public hearing is going to be about?
That was for the funding, the matching with the county. The county's looking to have funds, and we were going to do a matching fund. I think it was about a $2 million range for infrastructure costs for that project.
We're not buying the property back.
No, we're not buying. No, it's for grant fund monies out of the CHF.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've been going back and forth on the issues of which how many units have to be in perpetuity, and I've been speaking with Janice and others about the AMI level, which so we've been talking about a lot of different issues on this project,
And I believe
but that's what that's for.
I believe this is going to go before the CHF again before it comes to us during the public hearing, right? Is that correct?
They
think
did
they
do an
already-
they did do an
They did?
advisory report. Yeah, and it was very. I thought it was a very thorough.
Yeah, very detailed.
Okay.
Yeah, very detailed report they already submitted now. So, but I think we're on the same page now. We had, if you recall, we had discussions about this last week in exec session. I've been speaking with counsel for the applicants, and we've been talking to the county, and Janice has been involved as well. So, yeah.
I'll ask Kara to recirculate the opinion from the advisory board.
Yes.
because I think we did
Sure.
get that. They wanted some additional info, then they got it, and then the board,
Because I have a few people always ask me about this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify on the bond resolution for the rifle range. I just want to clarify that 1,000% needs to be done.
Mhm.
That building is a tear down. I just don't know that we need to spend $100,000. I think we have people in house that are can design it and we can do a prefab, and I'd rather put that 100,000 towards getting them a new building.
Well, sure.
As long as it's safe.
Tom didn't mention that, in the request for bond funding, but I'm glad to
Yeah.
change that. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Okay, so that brings us to our next portion of the work session, and as you know, we're looking into updating the town's comprehensive plan, but in anticipation of doing that, thought it would be a good idea to have Janice come to our work sessions one a month to give us a summary. Today is just an introduction, but then each time will be more in-depth look at the comp plan that it currently exists, as well as the Hamlet studies and the status of those, and then we'll know how we best to proceed. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone.
Do you want to just get the microphone in front of you so that you're captured on the audio?
How's that? Good. Sorry, Kevin.
He's gonna check. He's gonna make sure, but it should be good.
Now I feel like I'm in a congressional hearing.
Better speak up.
Well, your third grade report here. It seems like you misbehaved 2 times that year. Why should we recommend you as the?
Kevin, good? Am I good?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. So we're starting out with just sort of the basics. I think everyone knows, but it always begins, why are we doing this? What are we looking at? The fundamental things that some people know, maybe you don't. We take it for granted that people know all about what the comprehensive plan is and what it isn't. So the supervisor thought it was a good idea to just start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And I know the zoning board members want to watch this also to get a refresher.
Yes, we are allowing some continue. They have to get a certain amount of credits. They've asked me to do this comp plan presentation to them over time. I said, well, why don't we just do it to one board? It's recorded because it's at a work session, and then if you watch each segment, that'll add up to continuing ed credits. So, yeah. So the comprehensive plan, we know that they have to be prepared in New York State. It's a document or a series of documents that show the way that the municipality sort of it's a planning process. It establishes. I'll just read straight from here, actually, which is helpful. The comprehensive plan is the culmination of a planning process that establishes the official land use policy of a community and presents goals and a vision for the future that guides official decision making. So that's like your basis fundamental thing. And that's done because you want to be able to get together and have policies and have zoning that are in accordance with, a thought out plan. So it's not ad hoc. Someone's coming in and you're like, yeah, for you and no for you and yes, no all around. You want to have like, well, if we do these incremental steps, we're going to get somewhere. This is how we want to grow or not grow, or this is how we want the future to shape out in our land use pattern, and basically a settlement pattern. And that is so that you're not creating nuisances, you're not creating, one use that will, which we found, one use that maybe is at risk for a community to have nearby them. You don't want that, so you say, well, this isn't consistent with our goals. And so you say, well, it can't be there. It has to be over here. That's called Euclidean zoning, where we're really separating uses. Although now it's 2025, and over time we've realized some uses still can coexist with one another. But the original beginning of zoning was, the typical example was like, you don't want to live next to, like, let's say a hog operation or some kind of thing that's going to disturb your sense of quiet enjoyment of your private property. Mm-hmm. So we have lots of comprehensive plans in the town of Southampton, and when you look at our website, if you go to government, you hover above government, you see all these things come up, and down here it starts with master plans, townwide adopted, and there's a series of these plans, and that's what each one of these conversations will be us sort of going through a preview of the plan, what the plan said, and where we are. Did we implement things? What happened? So it starts out with the 1970 master plan, which is still here. It's here. It had ideas about what the future land use plan should be, how neighborhoods should shape out, things along those lines. In 1970, there was a lot of room to grow. And there was a lot of conversations back then about this, like Sunrise Highway extension, those kinds of things were still, very much happening. We talked recently in a zone change about a clover leaf to get on and off to get to Old Country Road in Speonk, and that was something from a long time past. And it could take, what has it been, 50 years or something? I'm 51 and I was born in 73. So, 50 years later, we're still talking about some of these things happening. So comprehensive plans don't expire. I've had a lot of people come to me and be like, throw that 1970 master plan out, or we don't need the 99 plan anymore. It's 2025. And I think it's good to know what the past, townsfolk wanted and what they thought. I don't think you should ever discard those things. Yeah. It's important to understand where you've come from in order to know where you're going. And especially here in a town like Southampton, where our colonial history is very much intact. We understand everything that took place from the patent, to now. So it's hard to say, who cares what they said? We're still doing even our hearings and notices and things along the lines of colonial ways. You not every town does the same, everything by local law. They don't do it necessarily this way that we do here. And it's a good thing. So my opinion is it's good to know where you've been and what people thought in the past in order to know where you're going. So
that also can come into play on non-conforming uses, right? If you have to know what was permitted or what was considered 50, 60 years ago sometimes.
Yeah, I think that it's important to understand what the objectives were in the past. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone into this document to be like, well, what did they foresee it becoming? Right. And then kind of what happened. It's a nice way of really understanding well, people didn't want it. It said this in the comp plan, but in the end somebody said, this community said we don't want it like that. And so there's a lot of times where people go, it can't be in the comp plan because now we're going to go in a way we don't, some people object maybe to and comprehensive plans are not, the zoning kind of sets forth, but it gives you the underpinning, but it doesn't say that things must happen. It kind of indicates the way you want your community to grow. It doesn't mandate things.
Because you have to do zoning changes to implement.
Right. So it always requires a legislative action to follow.
It's more of a guide, right?
It's more of a guide. Yeah. And but it does have bearing in court and things like that, because if you do a complete 180 and everything leading up to that point said this, and then there was maybe some political pressure or something happens and you don't do it that way, and now that affects someone's private property rights, they may have something to say about that.
You can't zone something that's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
Right, and the biggest point about that, I think, in that realm is spot zoning. So it has to benefit an entire community. It has to be to the benefit. It has to you're always looking to have a level playing field. So you can't just, sort of do one thing for one spot and not for others. So that's kind of a guiding principle there. So
it essentially goes to the rationality of a decision.
Yeah, Jim, you should really be given this.
No, I'm sorry.
No, but I'm serious. I'm happy for your feedback because legally, all this ends up in court, and that's where we have such wonderful town attorneys.
Like the supervisor mentioned, the courts will look to see if the standard really was a decision based. Was there a rational basis for the decision? And one of the main areas they'll look, well, was there a comp plan? So what does that say? It doesn't necessarily have to. You have to, like I said, it's a guide. It doesn't mean that it's mandated, but if you're going to differ from you have to have a reason for that, and you can provide reasons too.
Right, and here it even says, this is a document from New York State. It says the comprehensive plan is insurance that the ordinance bears a reasonable relation between the ends sought to be achieved by the regulation and the means used to achieve that end. So like, it's sort of like we're doing this because there's a bigger policy or a greater need, and we recognize that because we've planned for it over here, and now we're doing this over here to guide, regulations are really for the private property owners to come through, and we assure that they're doing things the way that the regulation says. And that's the whole purpose of all of this is that we work for the public and the public safety and health and welfare, right? So that's all these regulations in the end are to assure that everybody is, not being bothered, and you're neatly, arranged, and you can, you can get emergency apparatus to your property, and all those things happen. And so the comp plan is just sort of going through like all the different land uses and different possibilities and guiding things toward an end.
Well,
So-
Janice, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also what helps the planning board in particular decipher whether or not certain plans conform to the vision of what the town board intends.
That's right. And we love regulations that are very clear on what you want to see, because you can get into the waters of arbitrary decisions where you don't ever want to be arbitrary about anything. You want to be a clear nexus between what you're telling someone they mostly cannot do and what the regulation says and what the comp plan says. So yes, in the planning reports, we have always the people that read the comprehensive plan the most are the planners. We still care about the plan. We read the plan. We cite the plan. We're always looking at the plan when we get a project and going, is this consistent with this plan? And when you go to tell somebody no, they want to see where it says that. You show me where it says I can't do this. So that's where pattern books and things are so useful visually to us, because we're able to point to it and be like, look, it shows here. You really can't do it like that. So back to this 99 then will be the first one we kind of go through. But there's several, and I just want to give an overview of so there's 1970, which is a nice, sort of reference, but I don't think we're going to, delve into that. It's so far gone at this point. There's so much that's already happened that we're better off just the 99 envelops it and talks about.
Each one builds upon the prior one, would you say?
Yeah, I think they build upon each other, and then they get into topic areas. So, as long as you have a well-considered plan in that topic area, it doesn't have to be this end-all be-all plan. So people get confused why you have different plans and we stack them, because you may have a reference in a coastal plan, the 99 comp plan, the Hamlet plan. Mm-hmm. You may have references of if you're the decision maker and you need guidance, there's plenty of policy, and everything is sort of in all these plans about what you should or shouldn't do. So, and then of course you weigh that against what's now, today, what's happening. People say, well, there's a lot of that's all well and good. It may be in the comp plan, but look at the traffic now. And I can't, sustain this use next to me here in this case. So that's why it's important to update your comp plans, to be able to say, well, now what, based on the conditions today. So we have the 99 comp plan, and people again say, well, that's old, it's useless, but it really isn't, because it talks about sort of thematically what the vision is. So if you go in, sort of the vision, and the number one thing is the Southampton of the future will protect its valuable natural, historic, and scenic resources, enhance public facilities, maintain and diversify the local economy, and provide more travel choices. I mean, that's just as relevant as it ever was. Mm-hmm. So, these are and how do you do that? And so there's different ways, but, it starts talking about, how and you're doing that. All the things you're sort of doing are still doing this. How do you work with the economy? How are you working with, allowing local businesses to thrive? And, transportation has been obviously a big issue, always, I think. But, it's a different Southampton now since the internet, kind of. It used to be a place where it was Tumbleweed Tuesday and everybody went down to the Bahamas, and there was just the winter year-rounders. And you who are from here know this better than I, but I grew up near here too, and so it's not the same. Now people can work remotely. They're here more year round. You know, there's a different situation here than it used to be. So some of this is still.
It's still. I mean, it's definitely. There's definitely more people here year round. But you can. I mean, all you have to do is drive to work and see that the traffic is way nicer in the winter when there's
Much
not.
better.
You know.
When there's not all the drapery.
But I
and
mean,
the
we've
landscape.
always had a seasonal labor force that now they
Right.
just commute in more so than those that lived here.
Right. And the advent of the community preservation plan came right after the 99 comp plan. You know, it was just emerging in this comp plan. And then the 2% transfer tax happened. So that was a huge, amazing thing for this town. At the same time, it also exacerbated the affordable housing crisis that we're in right now.
Right.
So there's that trade-off.
And there also are emerging regional imperatives as well. You know, you look at septic improvement, all of those things which tie into development, and like that's also something that back in '99 we may not have been looking. We could have been looking at it, but it wasn't. Now we know like where the county in terms of the region is going. So that's something else to consider in terms of where
Right.
we are now.
Sure. And natural resources have always been, recognized. So it says here, the vision for natural resources, the wealth of natural resources in Southampton, from Pine Barrens and its pristine aquifer to the estuaries, wetlands, beaches, parks, and open spaces, are integral to Southampton's unique quality of life that is enjoyed by both seasonal and year-round residents. As such, the ecological integrity of Southampton's natural resources must be maintained and protected. And that's just as important today as it was in 1999. And so there's a lot of still very relevant objectives, is what I'm trying to say. We can then get into very specific, these were like literally, these were codes and specific things.
Those are specific recommendations?
Each one of the plans in the end of the plan has like sort of an implementation schedule, or not schedule because, or just sort of a table of like action, and like here's restrict the area of turf grass to no more than 15%. That was something that they thought you should do. We do that anyway in the planning realm, but that was never codified by the town board. We require that in Pine Barren areas as a condition of approval, typically. But it has different things, different random things and then bigger things. Once again, there's always been a recommendation to create a position for an arborist or somebody along those lines for the town. And I still think we need that. There's never been the political will to hire our own arborist. We contract out for that service, but I think that that's something that's important. But we don't have to get into the specifics. But the point is, each one of these plans has sort of an end, and we have a matrix that we did probably 5 years ago or a few years ago, looking at all of those and what did we do and what was left. So I have that to share with you as well from every one of these plans. So 99, and then Councilman Iaselli has been very much involved with the comprehensive plan related to transportation. There's the transportation element of the comp plan, and then there was County Road 39.
The corridor plan.
Yes, I'm sorry. But there's a transportation element to the comp plan too. The regular
Now, what
99
you're showing us,
comp
is
plan.
that a part of the
This is out of the 99.
1999 comp plan? That's a section of it?
But this is, I think, interesting. I want to kind of drill down on this. It is part of it, right? I think if you're thinking about the comprehensive plan globally, but on a micro perspective here, this is a separate document, right? I mean, it's relevant to the comprehensive plan, but this is a separate.
No, this is part of there was different elements in the plan. This is part and parcel of the plan. See how it has economic, transportation, community vision.
Up and down.
Transportation was an element of the comp plan. It's part of the comp plan. And the vision was to create more choices for residents in how they travel to and through town, and to create a transportation system that works in tandem with land use to preserve a landscape of rural roads with distinct village and hamlet centers. And these are all the goals. Streets, traffic calming, bicycling and walking, trains, transport intermodal. So all of this was always part of that plan.
Understood. But the transportation element as such
Then
as
there was
the-
a County Road 39 element
correct.
just for the highway.
And those are
This is
Would-
townwide.
right. I understand that. But the elements, those are more like addendums, correct?
No,
They're all adopted. So taken together, it's like a huge appendix of comp plan. Even though they're elements or whatever, they're just like subsections, or they live in a different document on the shelf, but they're all comprehensive
Like
plans.
the climate action plan that was passed last year is part of the comprehensive
comp plan.
plan.
yeah, but those all came after the 1999.
Sure. So there's things in the
version.
99 big plan. And then years went by. And instead of starting over and doing a whole other gigantic comp plan, those boards that came before you decided to do certain segments, focus on different things. Hamlet plans, which I want to get to.
So when you
quickly.
say chapters, though, I can't read that far away. What are those different chapters that are listed?
So this is the 99 comp plan we're still talking about.
Yeah.
And the chapters are introduction and background. So this is what the cover looks like. It has an introduction and background section. A vision section, which is the vision, which I just read. Then it has resources, which we just also went over. And there's more.
That's like
It's all the kind of vision for and there's technical findings for all these. If anybody wants to read all that stuff, they're all in my downstairs library room. Community enhancements, greenways and open space, sort of what the goals were about trails, interconnected system of greenways, that was really protection for greenways. And it was greenways being parks and trails and different natural settings where the public can enjoy the beauty of Southampton. So, and then there's economic goals. The economy was always about, farming and fishing, traditional, and then the resort economy was a resort economy. It still is. But then there's, small businesses that are the backbone of our town. And so this was talking about what kind of businesses we want to enhance the town with. Smaller, it says enhance the cultural offerings and enjoyment of historic architectural and scenic features, strengthen the ability of the marine industry, including marinas, to survive. It was talking about telecommunications, growing market for senior housing was a big deal back then, which it still is. High tech and job sectors that offer the prospect of desirable jobs for Southampton's youth, because we were always trying to retain youth here. We pay a lot of money to educate them, and then they leave because there's no place to live other than their parents' basement. So, and this talks about the resort economy, the second home. There is a huge second home economy here, and how this all works visitation-wise. And then, we were just talking about transportation. That was a chapter in the comp plan, to create more choices and look at the transportation and taking it from a regional perspective. So everything you've done since you got here, or things that have been done up until now, looking to the county for partnership, looking to the state, are all supported by the 99 comp plan. And then strategic plan. And
What's the last one?
it says strategic plan. So that is the capital improvements and the things, and that was this list, sort of, we could go through it,
I'm
but
sure a lot of that has changed, or
a lot of it happened, a lot. And we have all the matrix that I can share with you about what happened. But here was, the recommendation was develop a real estate transfer tax program and use the proceeds to purchase open space. That was the CPF. That was the recommendation, and look what we've done with that.
right.
It's a resounding success.
We should see which ones have been implemented and which ones haven't, and of those, do we want to, you know, continue and
Right.
try to implement them, or are we going to change?
And that would be sort of when someone says we should update the whole comp plan. It's kind of like, well, what you really need, you know, yeah, you need to like kind of do a snapshot in time of now and the existing conditions and the needs going forward. But at the same time, the real update is look at all the achievements and then what were the ones that did not get implemented and what can we still do or want to do now. And that's up to you.
So what I hear a lot of though is, you know, when I was on the CAC and East Quogue, we met with the then supervisor, and something he said really resounded with me, and it stays with me to this day. Is he said, you know, you guys can't say no to everything, because at the end of the day, I have regional issues that I have to fix, and I can't touch the villages. And we all sat at that table and we looked at each other and we were just like, so what he's basically saying is we get all of the stuff the villages don't want. And now I look at, you know, us just doing this code for BES. There's not a single village in the town of Southampton that has zoned for BES. It's all outside of villages in our hamlets.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear from the hamlets a lot is they feel like they get caught up in this comp plan, right, of needs for the town as a whole, but they don't feel like the villages are ever part of that discussion to give their share of uses that maybe the hamlets don't want, but we take because the villages aren't taking them, but they have to exist somewhere in the town.
Well, and the villages may not want to, right?
Exactly. But the villages can say that. The hamlets can't say, we don't want that. And back to what Supervisor Snyderman said, there's regional issues, and if you can't put them in the villages, then they have to reside in the hamlets. And I think, and that's what I'm hearing more and more from our hamlet residents is, they're not so worried about a comprehensive plan for the town because the villages really aren't much of a part and parcel of that, even though those village residents get to come in and weigh in on what should be in our town comprehensive plan, knowing they're kind of shielded in the village where they live. The hamlets are now coming to us saying, listen, we don't so much care about the big overview. We want to retain our hamlet character. We want to be like our own village. We want the town to recognize that we have wants and needs and things that we don't want in our communities. And we would like, you know, an updated hamlet plan that we can sit down and discuss with the town. This is the direction we want to take our hamlet where we live, where we raise our kids. We
And
don't
that-
so
yeah.
much want to be a part, you know, they understand being a part of the bigger picture, but they are really right now fighting to maintain their character.
And I think that's why we embarked on doing master plans by hamlet. Because
Well,
the big 99 plan said to do that. Because it couldn't envelop all of the things. It can only do, like you kind of, it's like a big funnel. And you kind of go from the, 30,000 feet and then you get closer and closer down to a parcel level objective. And the parcel level objective is never really in the big comp plan. That's more like overarching goals and policies and vision and, how we're going to, but then when you get down to by hamlet, now you're like, here's a piece of property that everybody's now like fixated on and what's going to happen here. And I couldn't say, really the villages are like separate jurisdictions. They're just different places and we can only just focus on the town. Although like some of the places like the village of Southampton, which we're in right now, they do have their own comp plan.
Mhm.
So there are villages that are on board with creating a comp plan for their area and they know that they need like cell tower infrastructure in the village. They know they need certain things. So I think they're going to be, forced to reckon with being resilient in a coastal, situation, especially here being a mile away from the ocean. I mean, at some
Well,
point
of
they're going to
course.
have to
I
figure
mean,
that out.
That's they have their own government, so they, like in West Hampton Beach, we did the comprehensive plan update, included the sewer project and a local waterfront revitalization plan. So because they're not governed by the town government, they have to take care of themselves and the community and have these comprehensive plans. But I mean, our plan, I understand why we would do hamlet studies. We want to treat each hamlet as an individual entity, and of course each one is. But we also have to understand that everything that happens in one affects the other. So, that's why it has to be looked at comprehensively, because what you do in Sagaponic, not Sagaponic, but, Bridgehampton can affect, or East Quogue, you have to look at the open space and the affordable housing so that you're not just focusing on putting one of those categories in one area and then the other in the other. So that's why I think it's important. We should look at the Hamlet studies and what's been done and what the community would like to see, but also fold it into the bigger plan of how it impacts what one hamlet does affects other hamlets.
Surely. And yeah, it's important to kind of drill down on the more locational specific needs of a particular hamlet. I hear that. It's also, it's a balancing act, because if someone has their own private property that they've paid taxes on for 30 years and now they want to build whatever it is they want to build, we want to make sure they build it in a way that's safe and done right and looks good and all the things. But oftentimes communities don't like change. They just want to just be like, well, I'm here and now nothing can happen. And that's a hard pill to swallow for the people who still own property that want to do something. People like to say, like, I love developers or something. No, it's just that if you were the one that owned the property, you would be like, I want to have a say also. So it's important to hear the community and work together. I think the best thing in the world is to work cooperatively and kind of balance out the needs of, like, say, the person who just, that was their family's piece of property for, the last 200 years, and they want to build some family compound or something on there, and the person next door is like, I don't want you to do that. It's a little different. It's not necessarily fair. So there's a fairness element here when we get into these comp plans, where most communities just want to be like, let's not do anything and call it a day. And that's hard to do. So you have to kind of plan for growth and life to happen. And that's a hard thing for some people to hear. Although, that's just the way it is. I mean, things change, life happens, and we're just trying to accommodate sort of life as it's happening and not just kind of stick everything in time that it can't change ever. And so there's this balancing act that comes along with just understanding that how that has to go.
Yeah. Why don't you take us through what happened after 99 and the plan was adopted?
So yeah, after the 99 plan was adopted, then there was the implementations and all the different things that took place, the CPF plan, the various different zoning codes. There was upzonings that took place. Then different, then we get into master plans by hamlet, where we have these alphabetically, Bridgehampton, and it's more for like hamlet centers. East Quogue was its own, generic environmental impact statement. They started doing that for a while, like kind of enveloping the master plan combined with SECRA, which is also a way you can do it.
But so, for example, like that's more specific. But what about the others? What components go into it? Is it like each hamlet study like a comprehensive plan, or is it just focused on certain things?
It's
Like the Bridgehampton
okay,
one.
let me
That
go to
was
that.
at the
So
top.
this was the Hamlet Center plan, and let's just say, like, this was just for, let me just see if there's a picture. Like, it kind of just talks about what we're seeing, and they had like maps. This was for a very discrete area, which ended up becoming our historic district. But this recommended that. So 20 years later, that happened, but that was from the seed of thought was from here originally, and it did a whole heritage resource. It looked at where all these little black dots are all sort of contributing structures within that area, and so it looked at the different resources. Over time, we had a huge, people will remember what happened with Watermill and LIPA and the transmission poles going down Montauk Highway, and there was a whole
51.
that kicked off a whole
Monster.
we called the AKRF study, where they did a whole visual assessment of every historic resource you can see from the roadway, because that happened. So that now we pulled into our comp plan to be like, well, if you're going to try to do that again, now we know where all the historic resources are. We commissioned a huge study so that we could, and that helped us also do these historic hamlet plans.
Did we have consultants for each of the hamlet plans?
Yes.
Were they all the same consultant?
No.
Yeah, like East Quogue went into like very specific like uses for properties.
Yep. So here's the final recommended plan in East Quogue. Let me just see if there's a map.
Yeah.
There should be.
What?
Like, it starts to talk about like where things are, what the spaces are we're talking about, and it had different recommendations. It recommended upzonings, it recommended different things.
And then do you know if the board implemented zoning to affect those changes that were recommended?
In some cases they did, and in some cases they didn't.
In some cases, it's specified that it should be done through like a PDD process.
Yeah, that's a big change that has to be rectified, because mostly all these plans talk about planned development districts, PDDs, and being like, oh, just do a PD, solve it with a PDD, and then the PDD was taken off the table as a tool. It was a tool in our toolbox for planning, and then it became sort of a problem.
Which I think that's a tool that should have been fixed and not completely discarded.
And this has been brought up several times actually, the PDD. When was it taken off?
It was
After the hills.
Probably
What
about
year?
16?
18, 18, something like that.
16, 18.
Yes, 17, 18, sometime.
Yeah, somewhere in
Because
there.
can you describe what the board felt the specific problems were with it?
The thing was that a PDD is a floating zone, and the comp plan allows for these floating zones, which you're also doing with battery energy storage, where they only exist in potential, right? They don't exist until you land them. They exist in the terms of their categorization is there, like a senior citizen overlay, and then but if you end up having a big enough piece of land and you're near a hamlet center and all the things that say somebody can petition you and be like, hey, can you land this zone on this property so I can build this senior thing that I want to build? And when somebody asks me for my recommendation, my first thing is to go back to every single comp plan and see what everything said, or all the policies. Because if you have different policies, you need to let us know so that we can change these plans. Otherwise, the assumption is you're in agreement and we're continuing those policies. One of those policies is senior housing is a good thing. It doesn't create a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of kids. There's no kids in the school. It's a needed thing for our aging population to have a place to age in place and not have to be displaced to like North Carolina or something. They can stay in the town of Southampton. So if someone comes and says, I want to land this here, you look at all the reasons why that's a good thing or bad thing, hear all the public testimony, and make a decision. With PDDs, the idea was those were also floating zones. But they were floating zones that had attached to them a community benefit. Like the senior housing in and of itself is a benefit, right? Because people need that use. PDDs were different uses that achieve community needs, but they also were supposed to have attached with it a public benefit. And so it became morphed into this idea that it was zoning for dollars, and that you were going to get something if you could, and it was
a question of how the community benefits were very subjective, and there was no like set parameters for community benefits.
And so the idea what a different administration wanted to have each hamlet list out their wish list of community benefits, and then if somebody came in to apply for something, they would know what people wanted. But we didn't really get that far until it all kind of got tossed out.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, were PDDs more general? Because what you were saying is you can essentially propose an overlay of some kind, as you made an example of the senior housing, that's specific. So you can essentially do that, but you have to be specific? Is that what you're saying?
There was categories, there was different types
So
of
what-
CPDs.
CPI was a
Resort
PDD.
tourism PDD was one of them.
So then what's
Commercial,
changed then
industrial.
with the removal of PDD? Because it sounds like you can still do it, but you just have to it's just not called a PDD.
No,
Correct?
there was several ones that were gone, that you can't do it. Like resort tourism, you really can't like build a hotel in this town, and we really should revisit that as to where you may want to build, a proper hotel that people can afford to go to, not the, 10 unit
Right.
one that only is $1,000 a night. Some people would like to have their relatives come visit and can't put them up at their
The unit-
house, and
The
they
units
could
per
stay
acre,
somewhere
right?
nearby. That would be nice, and it's not going to ruin anyone's life. And we did it all nice. Then maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But that was something that you had to come through as a PDD to get a hotel, unless you were in the motel zone, which there aren't many. The motel zones were kind of just surrounding existing ones, like Hampton Maid or something. So PDDs got the bad rap. The nice part for someone like me working on PDDs was that you were able to like literally zone it yourself, like
Be
all
creative.
like really lock in. And that's why like someone like Fairfield is coming, because there's conditions, because the board like literally zoned every little thing about it. So it was very locked in about how it had to be and what the
Like for
conditions
CPI,
were.
we had to open the PDD just to change their signage.
Oh yeah.
Like it's
yeah.
they're so specific on what they're allowed to have and not allowed to
It's
have.
like they have their own little zoning code,
Mhm.
each one of them.
Yeah.
But it was also very difficult. It's easier to have just a blanket type of zone, and someone comes in and
So wouldn't it
So-
make sense? I mean, just hypothetically here, I'm just brainstorming. I think that's what our work sessions are for. Wouldn't it make sense to bring back PDDs fixing some of the community benefit matter, and assign PDDs per hamlet? So because hamlets have specific interests and wants and goals, and having them sort of work in the process of assigning what the zoning would be might make the most sense in terms of creating a more harmonious
sure,
approach to planning.
I think the general tool, we called them PDDs, and they probably have a bad rap, but it's just called incentive zoning.
Mhm.
And what is the incentive to a developer? What do you want to see that the community themselves can't pay for usually? Here in a town like Southampton, maybe we can pay for certain things, so we don't always need. In other places, they're very much dependent on outside investment. So somebody is incentivized or enticed to come to a community and invest their dollars in that community to uplift the community and provide jobs and housing and those things. And how do you incentivize that person with their risk and their dollars to come to your community to get what you want? And that's what PDDs originally come from. The original planning tool is just an incentive zoning tool. And so we can go back to like, strip all that away, don't go back, start over, but look at what is the incentives that you're willing to engage with someone on in order to get the community you want. That's
Yeah.
really the point.
There were
Right.
discussions, and Janice was very much involved in it, and the prior planning director, when the board was considering disbanding PDDs, but in the alternative, they would still wanted to create some type of what you're discussing, like some flexible zoning, so have some more flexibility in the zoning code to allow for the mixed use zoning that PDD provides to some degree.
Because I
And
think-
what the town's like at this point, right? You like the live, work, and play kind of
Yeah.
areas.
Without having that tool, right, you're trying to basically get creative with existing zoning,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always translate, and
Yeah.
you're not getting the best project you could get if you
Right.
had that flexibility
Right.
of,
Right.
that zoning tool.
Yeah.
And
Tool.
it
So-
is a tool, and we
Yeah.
like our tools in our toolbox. It's like if you don't have the tool when you need it, now you got to go out and get it instead of having it there, and you may never use it, but you want to have your Phillips screwdriver in your tool bag if you need
It's
it.
like when Janice brought up the first thing, she mentioned the Euclidean zoning. That's the standard refers to a case back in the U.S. Supreme Court in Euclid case back in mid-30s, I believe it was. But yeah, essentially talked about, well, the very rigid zoning where she mentioned where you have an area for residential, you have an area over here for commercial, you have an over here for your industrial, and there's no mix, where now towns, even, Long Island is starting to become more receptive to the idea of having this mixed use. You've seen it more and more in a lot of different communities.
So here's what it says in the state enabling about incentive zoning. It says, what value does incentive zoning have for a municipality? By themselves, zoning regulations do not ensure that development will occur. It could be said that zoning, by its nature, acts prospectively by indicating what uses will be allowed in the future. If a municipality wants a certain type of development in a particular location, it can ordinarily only wait to see if a developer will find it economical to build. Incentive zoning changes this dynamic by providing economic incentives for development that may not occur without the incentive. It's also a method for a municipality to obtain needed public benefits or amenities in certain zoning districts through the development process. Local incentive zoning laws can even be structured to require cash contributions. That was the zoning for dollars part that people did not like, in lieu of physical amenities. For example, the allowable square footage may be increased if adequate funds are contributed toward the construction of a municipal parking garage.
Janice,
You know, so
what are the incentives to the developer for a PDD? 'Cause
well, that was the whole matter. Was it was a density incentive. So PDDs were density incentives, but they didn't have to be.
Can you explain that? What, like, how? Like what?
Let's say,
Like just more units and more
Mo-
income?
most
Is that
more
what you're
unit, like,
saying?
you know, okay, let's use the one that was the most controversial. That was my project for 16 years, and that was CPI. So you have new place
16
in,
years?
and you had 16 years. Until just last year,
Wow.
we finally closed it out. It's over. It's done, which was amazing. You had the dilapidated Canoe Place Inn, and you had Tide Runners on the other side. And the yield at Tide Runners, it was zoned RWB, and you would not be able to get all the townhouses that they have there now. But the deal was, if they spend whatever they spent, which is in excess of $100 million on renovating that Canoe Place Inn, because people decided that was an asset that the town, they originally wanted to build the condos there. They wanted to demolish it and build the condos there. And people then, there was a whole campaign, grassroots, Canoe Place Inn matters, save CPI, want this thing. And so they started to come around and go, well, what if this is going to cost us a fortune. Can we have more townhouses on this side in order to do this over here? And they got more than they would normally be allowed, but that offset what everyone said they wanted, which was the Canoe Place Inn renovation, which looks beautiful now.
So that's the benefit to the developer.
That was the trade-off, the benefit. They also gave money toward the Maritime Park. They gave all this money toward affordable housing. They did a lot of different. People don't realize like how much we extracted out of that
They did the
whole thing.
hospitality academy with the school.
They did a hospitality academy with the school. They did a
So
lot of
they did
good
a lot of other community-oriented stuff.
community-oriented benefits.
Were the PDDs previously, as I kind of asked the question, could they be tied to the sort of the goals and objectives of each of the hamlets? But were they previously were PDDs hamlet by hamlet, or were they more all encompassing?
All encompassing, because of course it's always sort of like anyone can avail themselves to it, but then once you get into the application process, you're really supposed to, and then they revised the PDD law at one point to be like, these hamlets are supposed to identify what they need and want, and people were like, I'm not doing that because that means more density is going to come to my hamlet. So they didn't want
But not
to.
necessarily.
Not necessarily, but that's what happens. So I know you don't have a lot of time. I don't, so each week, I guess I'll come back and go through each one of these plans and where we've been, I want to make the most efficient use of your time.
I like that.
Do all the hamlets have a hamlet study?
Yes.
Even, or some of them combined, like Remsenburg's Beyond.
Yeah,
Or is that
Remsenburg,
folded into
Beyond,
East-
Eastport, West Hampton.
It's all
would-
one.
I would just really like an overview of.
I know we can go on GIS and we can see this is the land that's been preserved. But I
Okay.
mean, as we move forward with CPF, and that's a plan that I think we really need to
Yeah.
look at, because we're fighting ourselves, right? We're trying to create housing, but we're also knocking houses down to preserve property. So like in some hamlets, I know that makes sense in some areas, like, if there's a really environmentally sensitive property that maybe shouldn't have had a house built on it, and we can remove that and, bring that property back. That's great. But I feel like in other instances, we're just preserving land to preserve land. And I would like to have more of a pathway as to, and I know we do have, parameters set as like, this is an important area, but I feel like almost every piece of property somehow fits into the CPF plan. Like, you can wiggle it in there somehow.
Well, almost everything we do, we're amending the CPF
Yeah.
plan, so it's not even in the original plan.
So,
Right. So because things come up and people go, hey, before I put this on the market, do you want to?
because it's easy,
And then
right? It's like,
it's
if I can just
easy.
the town to buy
But
it.
it feels like there's no plan.
Yeah.
It's a bit ad hoc, but
Like, I
it's-
think what I think we really need to do is we need to update, like, the properties that are really like, like we have trails, the Trails Advisory Committee goes through and they give us their list of like, these are the top 10 properties that we would like to see preserved.
Coastal properties.
But at the same time, we can't publish that list because it'll drive up the prices of those properties. But I would like to know from our perspective when we're looking at these things, where should we be looking for, real preservation? And I mean, I get excited when we see a piece of property that's fully wooded and hasn't been touched. And, like that's what I feel like we should be preserving. But at the same time, there's places that are pockets in neighborhoods that maybe a house wouldn't matter so much,
Exactly.
It comes down to your vision and the community's visions for how the development and settlement patterns are going to go. And we've pretty much been established as an English settlement that has the downtown, villages or hamlet centers, the places outside the villages, like Bridgehampton is not a village, but it's got a downtown.
Historic
And then
district.
sort of you really should focus on the development being in the, surrounding the downtown, and then having more of the, preserved areas outside of those areas. So,
Right.
and here we have a bit of a, it's a bit of a hodgepodge patchwork because people have, gobbled up property wherever. And you can't blame them. At the same time, if you want to preserve property, it's really better to, aggregate. And you've got thousands of acres of pine barrens, thousands of acres of woodland, wetland. So then now backing into like, where can we develop reasonably and, effectively to look good and be able to get from place to place. So one informs the other is what I'm trying to say.
I was just going to say, potentially a hamlet by hamlet PDD could actually inform CPF and what we want to preserve and whatnot.
So I have some really great maps of outside of the comp plan, but just, we've been analyzing like, the hamlet centers over the years and how that looks. And that's something we should probably discuss here, because if it's not PDD, it's some other kind of overlay zoning to establish, what you might want. However, we're not gonna sort of get into the whole, like, we have to do all the secra and all the analysis. It's just more, difficult to do it that way. It's easier to just create these zoning categories and let people come with real projects and real risk and propose them, but have the sense of like, yeah, we want it here, and we're not going to talk about more, density outside of like this. You have some parameters.
I think we should hear about the different floating zones and overlay districts also. That would be important
Okay,
to have a summary of those.
So I'd give you that. Anything else for next time?
And the county did have, to your point, the county did have a list of their targeted open space ranking, back when I was over there. I'm sure it was produced by the county planning department, which they have a little more time to analyze things than we're here, working on the front lines. But they did have and it was good, and it was used. When I was head of the acquisition department there, it was helpful to, you would target those, but you didn't necessarily follow them completely, because if something else came along that was worthwhile, you went for that one, because it was all dependent on willing sellers as well. There were a couple of pieces that were.
I mean, I think I'm making it sound more hodgepodge than it is. I mean, we do look at trails implications, we look
Right.
at underlying environmental
Yeah.
features,
Yeah.
the committee goes
Yeah.
through it. There's a whole process.
The
But
advisory board is
it would
very
just
good
be
at what
nice
they
to
do.
have like a high
Overview.
level overview.
Sure,
Yeah.
we have that.
and to utilize that and in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So, like Janice is saying, well, as part of development, you have this piece of crucial open space over here that could be used for parklands or trails, which is something that people love to have if they live nearby.
We're
Need a
really
balanced
good at
approach.
Right.
preserving, but it's not as easy when it comes to developing, right? So it's a very difficult, embarking on that is hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people want and need to live here in a way that's
Yeah.
appropriate.
I mean, perfect example. It's like super sad when you drive down the end of what is that? North Main Street, and you get to the end, and it used to just be like it used to roll down into a pasture where there was horses, and then you go through one day, and it's level. And you know what I'm talking about, right, Bill? It's level, and there's this giant house, and it was just. It's just something you take for granted growing
Yeah,
up here. Like
yeah.
there was always that view and those horses, and now it's this giant house. And
Right.
it's just
And that's the
nothing we could have really done about it because, like you said,
Right.
it's their land and they have property rights. But at the same time, it's
Right. That's the
I
problem.
think that's
with it.
one of the components of the comp plan that was not really engaged upon, and that is designating scenic
Mhm.
corridors and creating those scenic, saying this is an important scenic view shed. And so the planning board has been requiring people to kind of be out of these places, but they don't have the legislation necessarily, like a scenic byway or a scenic, like regulations come into play. And it's been, over the years not wanted, but I think that's the next big thing is sort of like preserving those important view sheds
Yeah.
that give you that sense of place. That's
Right.
a big deal.
It's tough because if you lose it forever. So
Yeah.
as sometimes we used to get people question, well, why'd you buy this? Why'd you do this? And well, maybe it wasn't the exact time but maybe we needed a bond for it or whatever. But if you lost that beautiful piece of farmland, and it became a subdivision, well, that's it. It's never coming back.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the identity of a place is tied to what you see there.
Right.
I mean, that's so important to
Right.
kind of be sensitive to that at the same time.
That's why people live here. So,
Yeah, so it's a balancing act. But anyway, I appreciate you asking me to come here and talk about my favorite subject.
Yeah. Well, we
Thank
really
you.
want to dig in.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, so I'll be back next time, and I'll bring some of these ideas, and we'll go and
Okay.
try to be as methodical as possible.
Thank you.
It's a lot, so
I
it's
know.
months
We'll
and
get
months
through
of it.
It's a good education.
Thank
Indeed.
you.
Thanks, Janet.
Sure.
So that brings us to
Nice
the.
new chairs.
Yeah.
Almost could take a nap.
Oh, there's one over there too.
Yeah.
The town council and supervisor liaison update. Cindy, do you have something?
I'm just
today?
trying to. Really, the only thing I have is just to touch on what we've been talking about. Actually, is East Quogue CAC, and I'll try to give you guys more of an update on the CACs and what they're talking about. I know East Quogue CAC right now is exploring creating a park district. They're trying to really work with the civic and the beautification and the historical society and all the different factions in East Quogue. And they just feel like rather than coming to us annually for grants, they would like to, basically self-fund a parks district so that they can, maintain the hamlet the way that they want and do some more things to beautify it. And so they're just in the very early stages of that conversation, but it's nice to see everybody working together and on board with at least discussing it and having a conversation. And I'm working on getting them more information to that end.
That
That would be
sounds
good.
like a nice idea. And I think this year we should work on a way to get more information. You're all liaisons to the different CACs and civics, but it seems like we need a more formalized way of getting the information from you to the whole board,
Yeah,
so that
report
we
back.
all know, everybody knows what the issues are, and we can focus on making things happen. So let me just think about that.
Some sort of like way to centralize all of the different needs and
Yeah, it's just I think with a little discussion and if we hit on
Yeah.
the bigger issues, like not
Mhm.
everything that's discussed, but the bigger issues, and
Yeah.
because let's face it, between all the emails we get and all the correspondence
It's a lot,
to read through, then all the minutes and everything else. So
Mhm.
we're here every week. If we can just kind of
Right.
give a broad overview of what went on that month, or
Exactly, because I don't want them to think they're wasting their time if we're
Mhm.
not responsive to what they're discussing, but then we're not really,
And some of them don't send minutes back to us,
Yeah.
so it's even harder.
yep. Exactly. All right, well, that's good.
being the secretary for CAC is a thankless job.
Were you ever that?
No.
What about you, Michael? What do you have?
This past weekend, on Martin Luther King Day, I did join the community breakfast, which was organized by Nisi Smith and Reverend Utley. The NAACP was there. Leaders from the Shinnecock Nation were there. The new NAACP president, Dwight Singleton, was elected, as you know, during the NAACP installation on Saturday. It was just a really nice coming together celebration of Arlene Van Slyke, Geraldine Hobson, and Gerald Martin. The board gave some certificates to them, and I was there, and they were very, very appreciative of that. And also, I've teamed up with Councilwoman McNamara to do a collection drive for Heart of the Hamptons this time of the year as the temperature gets colder. In my experience, there's always a need to help vulnerable families that are going through tough economic times, whether they need food or they need some clothing. Heart of the Hamptons does a really nice job trying to really touch base with a lot of these families and provide them with what they need. So we're collecting some coats, new and used. We have some non-perishables, pasta, canned goods, cereal, and also diapers. If you can maybe drop off some diapers, sizes 4, 5, and 6. We're doing this from now until February 28th. We hope to collect a lot of items.
What's the collection point?
Downstairs.
Downstairs in
in Town
the
Hall.
lobby?
Yes,
It's
yes.
a big room, I suppose.
Yeah. So, and whatever you can do to contribute. That way we can help all of those that are in need.
Can
That's
I add
great.
a few things to that? Can I add a few things to that? Also, animal food, dog and cat food.
With Heart of the Hamptons?
Yes, that's a big thing, because some people, it's like a choice. Do they buy food for themselves or do they buy food for the dog or
Because it's
cat?
expensive, yeah.
Tough choice.
That's a big need. A lot of people buy cat food before they buy people food for the cat or the dog. And also, if they're gonna give canned and food and box food, don't go in your closet and say, oh, it's gonna expire in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because they can't give out expired food and it just gets thrown away.
Right.
That's a good point.
Provide some new stuff.
New stuff.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Well, I have the Bel Air, what I'm trying to get started on. I hope to get started on soon, but we're just having a little trouble with getting the funding going. Hope to get that cleared up in the next
Getting
week
the
or so.
what? What's the funding?
Yeah, from upstairs to downstairs. And the money's there. We just
Yeah.
So
have to
let's
get the
let
money.
you know a few people upstairs.
And,
Yeah.
and then I found out last night, I got an email that the Southampton Historical Society of the museum sent another eviction notice to the Conscious Point Hatchery to get out by February 5th, I think. And the board's going to be looking into that to see if they're doing the right thing. That's putting a big rift in the town people, unfortunately, and that's about it.
Okay. Oh, and there was a swearing in for Tommy John last weekend.
right, yeah.
It was a nice gathering and a good send off for him to go to Albany, and hopefully we'll be working together and continue to work together. I'm sure we will, and that he'll be able to help us with different things. So, all right, well, if that's it, then I move to go into executive session to discuss acquisitions and confidential legal advice and then close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.